stage and screen, he's collaborated with many of the leading directors and writers of our own. And Stephen was a founding member of the Field Day Theatre Company, whose presentation of all years School Festivals in the 1980s. Stephen has always been a champion of Irish culture, and we're delighted to have him here to read Mahon's work tonight. Stephen.
Afterlives for James Simmons. I wake in a dark flat to the soft roar of the world. Pigeons neck on white roofs as I draw the curtains and look out over London, rain fresh in the morning light. This is our element, the bright reason on which we rely for the long-term solutions. The orators yap and guns go off in the back street. But the faith doesn't die, that in our time these things will amaze the literate children in their non-sectarian schools, and the dark places be ablaze with love and poetry when the power of good prevails. What middle-class shits we are. To imagine for 1 second that our privileged ideals are divine wisdom and the dim forms that kneel at noon in the city, not ourselves. I'm going home by sea for the first time in years. Somebody thumbs a guitar on the dark deck while a gull dreams at the masthead. The moon-splashed waves exult. At dawn, the ship trembles, turns in a wide arc, to back shouldering up the grey loch, past lightship and buoy, slipway and dry dock, where a naked bulb burns. And I step ashore in a fine rain to a city so changed by 5 years of war, I scarcely recognize the places I grew up in, the faces I try to explain. But the hills are still the same, grey-blue above Belfast. Perhaps if I'd stayed behind and lived it bone by bone, I might have grown up at last and learned what is meant by home. Rage for order. Somewhere beyond the scorched gable end and the burnt-out buses, there was a poet indulging his wretched rage for order. Or not, as the case may be, for his is a dying note, an eddy of semantic scruple in an unstructurable sea. He is far from his people, and the fitful glare of his high window is as nothing to our scattered glass. His posture is grandiloquent and deprecating, like this, his diet ashes, his talk of justice, and his mother, the rhetorical device of a Claudian emperor. Nearer, if you prefer. No mother there. And this in the face of love, death, and the wages of the poor. If he is silent, it is the silence of enforced humility. If anxious to be heard, it is the anxiety of a last word when the drums start. For his is a dying art. Now watch me as I make history. Watch as I tear down to build up with a desperate love, knowing it cannot be long now till I have need of his terminal ironies. The last of the Fire Kings. I want to me like a man who descends at 2 milk churns with a bulging string bag and vanishes where the lane turns, or the man who drops at night from a moving train and strikes out over the fields where the fireflies glow, not knowing a word of the language. Either way, I am through with history. Who lives by the sword, dies by the sword. Last of the fire kings, I shall break with tradition and die by my own hand rather than perpetuate the barbarous cycle. 5 years I have reigned, during which time I have lain awake each night and prowled by day in the sacred grove for fear of the usurper, perfecting my cold dream of a place out of time, a place of porcelain, where the frugivorous inheritors recline in their rich fabrics, far from the sea. But the fire-loving people, rightly perhaps, will not countenance this, demanding that I inhabit, like them, a world of sirens, pin lids, and bricked-up windows. Not to release them from the ancient curse, but to die their creature and be thankful. Northern Star for Stuart Parker. Ancestral voices bicker, ghosts wrestle and dance. Indignant hosts of all persuasions dander down to throng the lanes of Antrim, down. Burnished pikes unsheathed from thatch, sabre and flintlock quick to catch. Still the inspired conspirators make history in Kelly's cellars, or at Menard's Fort and Cave Hill. Their music above politics still, as starlight shines above the ball. Weaver and printer, ideologue, children of nature, natural sons and daughters, trenchant resolutions, echoing like wind-scented air, adrift like thistledown elsewhere. Red dawn, white tide, and starry night dissolve to chaos, heartbreak, shite and lunacy. The hanging man, nothing whatever gone to plan, leaving our souls still incomplete, and white noise of sectarian hate echoing down the continuous past and the loved entries of Belfast. We corner shops we used to know, close-knit communities, the flow of generational energy, streams of consciousness, rain traffic dreams, the summer bus from glen to glen, a common enough existence then, or nearly, till the story broke and the whole place went up in smoke. White noise of gulls at rubbish dumps, killers and victims both at once, each blow a self-inflicted wound. And always the holistic sound of blackbirds on a summer night, in a world transfigured by starlight, till all fade oblivionwards, drowning out any further words. Okay, this is called Belfast. The last trams were still running in those days. People wore hats and gloves as long before. Raw fissures lingered where incendiaries demolished Clifton Street in April '41. The big band era, dances and commotion. But the war ended and rain swept once more parks and playgrounds, chapel and horse trough, to die in the faraway mists over Belfast Lough. Do this, do that, road closed, no entry, stop. A world of signs, and yet the real thing too. Even now I catch a whiff of brack and bab, the soak and seas of the disparate. Bonds from Stewart's, gobstoppers from Graham's, our crowd intent on our traditional games, sectarian puzzlement, swinging rope, freezing winters, pristine bicycle frames, school windows under the Cathedral, childish faces, uncles and aunties, pipes and lipstick traces, epiphanies in sheds and woody places. How can we not love the first life we knew? We can dream only what we know, he said. I know the whole length of the Antrim Road and often think of Salisbury Avenue, mysterious Hazelwood. I still dream of you. On Riverside Drive and the California Dream Beach, such things we visited him, just out of reach, just as he left them after Naples, Warsaw, frozen forever in the austere post-war, where frequent silence keeps its own integrity, and smoky ghosts of the exhausted city rustle with phantom life whose time is up. They queue in Campbell's crowded coffee shop, or wait for a bus at Rob's. I can make out a clutch of gantries, a white sepulchre grimly vigilant on its tiny acre. Skirts and shirts, mid-20th century style, and dimly lit arcades. Carpets of wet rain at the quayside where a night boat churns up the dock, and a rapturous old girl sings, "Now is the hour," with her eternal smile. This is my own choice. Trump time. Nineveh, Tyre, and Carthage are long gone. Also Troy and the hanging gardens of Babylon. Now Britain's empire is a thing of the past, and Angria too will have an end at last. Oh, not an end, but a slow decline at least. Whitman and Moby Dick, F. Scott Fitzgerald will still be read, Gershwin and Satchmo Heard, movies downloaded. But the wider world will think of other things as it did once. Hard rock and carpet bombing will be down, Apple and Goldman Sachs down with the rest. Some peace and quiet once again in evidence. Where spring rises in the little wood of birch and sycamore beside the house, I stand and listen to the undying source whispering there. I'd travel, if I could, through the lost ages to a distant time when it was sacred to a pre-Christian God. I'd tie a token on a thorn and climb back to the present, sure in the belief we can still touch the origins of life, relish perspective, silence, solitude far from the bedlam of acquisitive force that rules us and will rule the universe. Such things survive, beloved of poet and artist, only where their despoilers haven't noticed. In a yard or a hidden cove, out on the edge, the rushy meadow and the fallow acre, ripe for development as industrial plant, serving as temple, shrine, and sepulchre. These places minister to the soul by dint of radiating a strange air of privilege. And here we live, not in a petulant rage for world dominion, but an inner continent of long twilights, shrouded in mist and rain. Lasting features of our most